Well, hey everybody. My name is Jason Cramey, and I am the Director of Family Ministry here at Prince of Peace Lutheran Church in Burnsville, Minnesota. And it's my joy to share with you this week our One Thing blog. Now, in case you haven't been with us since the beginning of this thing, 3 weeks ago, the One Thing blog consists of one thing that we are thankful for, one thing that we are learning, and one devotional thought. And we post that on Mondays. You can find that on our website. But then here on Wednesday afternoons, we dive a little bit deeper into the devotional thought for the week. And this is my devotional thought. This is what I've been thinking about. So I am in the middle of preparing for confirmation in the fall. It's one of my favorite things that we do here at Prince of Peace. And this fall, I'm planning on using the Gospel of John and really featuring the Gospel of John in an important way. I want to walk with the students through the Gospel of John so that they can see across a whole bunch of different contexts what the work of the gospel looks like out in the world, right? So in relationships, in systems, in the church, in the inner work that people do, I want to show them what that looks like there in the Gospel of John so that they can see maybe better what it might look like in their own lives and in all the areas that they frequent in the world today. So that's led me to some study in this Gospel. And John chapter 1 has been just huge for me over the last few weeks. And so in order to really set that up, I got to go back to the beginning, like the beginning of the Bible. This is only going to be like 10 minutes, so don't worry, right? It's going to be okay. So the beginning of the Bible, we find God creating, right? In Genesis chapter 1 and 2. And at the conclusion of God creating in those chapters, God says what over all of creation? Well, God says that it's good. And then after God concludes creating humanity, God says that we are what? We're very good. Well, I believe that the primary problem that we deal with, and that really makes up the drama of Scripture, is the reality that we disagree with God on that fundamental claim, that we are very good. And our disagreement on that fundamental claim leads us to seek out and to enact many and various strategies for obtaining our goodness, And so some of us try to use perfection. Some of us try to use trying to be the best helper we can. Some of us try to be achievers. Some of us try to be folks that always know the next right answer. Some of us try to use just being fun, being the life of the party. Some of us try to use power to achieve this feeling of goodness in our lives, when really what it takes to achieve goodness is simply to accept the goodness that God has already spoken over you. But we don't, a lot of times. And it's not even a chapter away from when Adam and Eve disagree with God on that point, that things start to fall apart in Genesis chapters 3 to 11. Like, we got a brother killing a brother, we've got nations subjugating other peoples, we've got Noah and the flood. I mean, things really kind of come off the rails. And then the rest of the Old Testament is sort of the playing out of this disagreement, just to bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger systems. And so when we get to John chapter 1, this disagreement has had a lot of work to play, a lot of room to play, and to wreck things in the history of humanity. And so I think that what John is doing in this very first chapter is setting up the way in which Jesus is the solution to this problem. And so I think that the first chapter of John is a creation story, but it's not a creation story of stuff, it's a creation story of us. And maybe not a creation story, maybe that's the wrong word, a recreation story. Maybe that's more accurate. But listen to this. This is John chapter 1, first 16 verses. The Word was first, the Word present to God, God present to the Word. The Word was God, in readiness for God from day one. Everything was created through him. Nothing, not one thing, came into being without him. What came into existence was life, and the life was light to live by. The life light blazed out of the darkness. The darkness couldn't put it out. There once was a man, his name was John, sent by God to point out the way to the life light. He came to show everyone where to look, who to believe in. John was not himself the light. He was there to show the way to the light. The life light was the real thing. Every person entering life, he brings into light. He was in the world was there through him, and yet the world didn't even notice. He came to his own people, but they didn't want him. But whoever did want him, who believed he was who he claimed and would do what he said, and here's an important thing. He made to be their true selves, their child of God selves. Read that again. He made to be their true selves, their child of God selves. These are the God begotten, not blood begotten, not flesh begotten, not sex begotten. The Word became flesh and blood and moved into the neighborhood. We saw the glory with our own eyes, the one-of-a-kind glory, like Father, like Son, generous inside and out, true from start to finish. John pointed him out and called, "This is the one I told you was coming after me, but in fact was ahead of me. He's always been ahead of me, has always had the first word." We all live off his generous bounty, gift after gift after gift. We got the basics from Moses, and then this exuberant giving and receiving, this endless knowing and understanding, this endless knowing and understanding. Yeah. All this came through Jesus the Messiah. No one has ever seen God, not so much as a glimpse. This one-of-a-kind God expression who exists at the very heart of the Father has made him plain as day. I think that John 1 is a recreation story, a story wherein God comes close. As John says, where God moves into the neighborhood, where God's creative self, where God's most formative self, where God's most life, light bringing self comes into the neighborhood, into our space, into our moment, into our hearts to make us our true selves, our child of God selves, to break down the strategies that we have used as individuals and as communities, as systems, to justify ourselves, to obtain goodness. Comes to get rid of those so that we might see who God sees us as a child of God. Now, this recreating work doesn't happen all at once. Man, I wish it would, right? That's why I think like this season of life is so hard right now. That it would be so awesome if God would just snap God's fingers and solve this current moment of uncertainty, of uncomfortability, of turmoil, of unrest. But like the work of creation, recreation, isn't really all at once. It's a process. I love the way that he says, and then this exuberant giving and receiving, this endless knowing and understanding. It is going to take time for us. It's going to take time for us to let God recreate us as individuals. It's going to take time for God to show me who Jason is. It's going to take time for God to get me to stop trying to achieve my goodness in other ways and to let God just speak goodness over me and speak child over me. And in the same way, it's going to take time for God to convince the community I'm from, the people I spend my life with, to do the same. Not just internally in their group, but then to point that outward to other people. And so there's going to be this interim time, this now but not yet, on the way to where God is taking us. And God is taking us somewhere. One of the other beautiful portions of Scripture that I hold on to, and especially in times like this, is Revelation 21, where God promises that one of these days, I'm going to complete the work of making all things new, complete this work of recreation. And so for us, in the meantime, it is what it means to do this recreating work is to walk by faith, is to really claim that theme in the late chapters of Hebrews, to walk by faith in this work of recreating, letting God recreate us, letting God recreate the people group we are a part of, letting God recreate the way that we see other people and treat them, so that more people might know that they are a child of God. To haste the day when there will be no more tears or crying or mourning, when evil and brokenness will be cast into a lake of fire, so that all of us might stand together and worship the one who has called us child. Wow. Yeah, it's just a nugget, right? But yeah, so this week, I want you to think about just a couple of things. Why? Number one is this. What strategies are you relying on to validate yourself, to obtain your goodness? What strategies are you relying on to validate yourself or to obtain your goodness? The second thing is this. What would it look like for you to rest in the reality that you are a child of God? The reality that it's God's heart that you would know your true self. What would that look like? And finally, what would it look like for you to stand and hold the tension between those two things? For yourself, for your community, and for the world, without losing hope. To me, I think that is the task of the Christian. It's the task of the church in the world today. And my hope is that you'll lean into it. And in the comments below this video, if you're watching this on Facebook, I'd love for you to leave your responses to those questions and your thoughts about this one thing. I guess there's actually kind of a lot of things, but whatever. I'm the one recording this week, so it's good to be with you, and I can't wait to be with you in person. Take care. Bye-bye now.